Hey everybody, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Beekeeping for Newbies. Thank you very, very much for taking the time to listen today. I sure do appreciate you tuning in. As always, feel free to reach out, Jeff at beekeepingfornewbies.com. That's NEWBEES.com. All right, everybody. Well, welcome back. I hope everyone had a victory weekend, which, speaking of victory, I'm going to tell a quick story for you here. So many years ago when I was a young man, I was a part of the 24th Infantry Division Mechanized out of Fort Stewart, Georgia. We were known as the Victory Division, first to fight. That was kind of the motto, first to fight. So when we would have, back in the day, of course, there were no cell phones. So if somebody wanted to call a friend, they would dial a number to a landline home phone hanging off the wall. And that was how anybody, of course, talked whenever they wanted to talk. But specifically for my work there, we occasionally would do these alerts. And the alerts were really just a method to test the responsiveness of everybody. How quickly can you get the alert and then get to the fort, or what people would commonly refer to as a base. So how long does it take from the alert to get everybody there, information ready to go in case of any kind of a disaster? We were what was called a rapid deployment unit. We were supposed to be anywhere in the world within 72 hours. So as the Victory Division, your phone would ring at like 2 o'clock in the morning, and all you hear on the other end of the line is Victory Thunder. And you're like, oh, not Victory Thunder. So that was the code word or whatever for alert, it's time to go. So you had a phone roster. Basically, it was like, let's say you had like the senior person in your platoon. They would then call the platoon sergeant. They would call the squad leaders. The squad leaders would then go down the list and call the next people in line. And like if you called somebody, they didn't answer, you had to go to the person below them. So like, yeah, that's your whole thing at like 2 o'clock in the morning, Victory Thunder. And then you hang up the phone, you get your stuff. And so anyway, as the Victory Division, like everything was victory, like have a victory day, or, you know, you might go to salute somebody, you're like, victory, sir, you know, that kind of thing. So anyway, if you hear me say have a victory day, or I hope you had a victory weekend, that's where that comes from. It's permanently embedded into my adolescent young adult mind. Not much I can do about that. All right. So today we are talking about episode 136. This is around a bee business. Now, I would say for probably 75 to 90% of people, this really isn't going to apply to you. You're going to have some bees in the backyard. You're going to enjoy them. You're going to be having fun with them. And it's a nice little hobby. For others, you're going to try and take it to the next level, whether you decide to be a sideliner or a commercial beekeeper. So today I'm going to run through a whole lot of things that are specific to the business side. Now, I want to give you a disclaimer starting off here. I'm not an attorney. I'm not an accountant. I'm not a CPA. I'm just a bee guy who has run a few businesses here and there. I've been in the business world for a long time. Nothing I say should be construed as business or tax advice. Please consult the appropriate legal experts in your city and state. And also, everything we talk about really is kind of U.S. based. My apologies to my friends in the U.K. and Australia and everywhere else around the world, up in Canada. I don't have information on it, so I would have to defer you to your local resources there. But if you're in the U.S., this episode is going to be applicable to you. I don't think it's going to be too far off in other places. You might just call things, you know, by a different name. Excuse me, I've got this thing. I don't know what's going on. Like I've been just worn out for the past like 3 days, and I don't feel sick. I think it's like, I thought it was just allergens, and I like stopped taking my Zyrtec for like 2 days, but I don't know. I just feel beat down. Anyway, we're going to push forward. We're going to make things happen. So I'm going to kind of count this episode as one that has been a part of this like new beekeeper series we've been doing. And I'm just going to recap real quick. Episode 122, beekeeping laws and what you need to know. 123, where to put your bees, hive placement tips. 125 and 126 are around varroa management. Episode 129 is why I focus on the Langstroth hive. Episode 133, package bees versus nukes. 134, the true cost of beekeeping and what to expect. And the last episode from last week is 135, getting your beekeeping gear ready and what you need for year one. So what I'm going to try to do now, as we are in the reason that I kind of brought the whole like Victory Thunder thing up and putting us on alert is it's go time, right? The spring is here. I've got people emailing me now telling me that, you know, they're getting, and we're seeing it in the Discord room as well. A lot of new members. Welcome to the team there, folks in the Discord room. But we are getting a lot of messages, pictures, emails of people that are like, I've got swarm cells, I've got, you know, bearding, I've got all kinds of different things going on. So the spring is here. Swarm season is ramping up. We put out a couple of videos here recently around, the pill bottle swarm traps and getting things assembled. So we all need to be on alert and really paying attention now and getting ready for what's coming here in the next few weeks. What I'm going to be doing, I love it when I can, if I had it my way, I'd wake up every day and I would do an episode on something. I just quite frankly I don't have the material. I don't think I have the energy for it. But one day maybe we'll make that happen. But I really want to get at least 2 episodes a week done for the next 2 months. So hopefully we can get, like I said, as much information as possible out to everybody and get it in a timely manner, because you're going to need it. There's a lot going on and we don't have much time before things are going to start really cranking. Oh, and I do want to send a special thank you to Paul, who signed up for a monthly recurring contribution to the podcast. Paul, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It goes a long way. So thank you. Okay, let's jump in here. Now, before you start, making money from bees, I want to make sure that you're operating in a way that's, it's legal from a local, state, and federal standpoint. There's a thing you'll hear people say a lot is, everything is okay until it isn't. And I think that that's very applicable to what you're doing with bees. Like, for the most part, you can sell honey to your friends and neighbors. Maybe you sell a couple of nukes here and there. You're not going to pay taxes on it. You're not going to say to your neighbor who says, oh, how much is that jar of honey? You're going to be like, oh, it's $10 plus the 6%. So it'll be $10.60. Like, you're not going to charge people taxes. You're not going to collect the taxes. You're not going to send the taxes to the state. But as you get bigger and you start to grow, you're going to want to make sure you're playing by the rules. And, a long time ago, I used to be of the mindset like, oh, I don't want to give more to the government than they deserve, blah, 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 blah. They're just going to waste it. And that is true. They are going to waste it. But if you're playing by the rules, you open yourself up for a whole lot of deductions. So we'll talk a little bit about that as we go through. But playing by the rules in this case, or in this space, is really not a bad idea. And like I said, the side bonus of all of it, by playing by the rules, you're going to get some deductions and you're going to come out better off than you would have if you're just constantly trying to be on a cash basis and trying to sneak around. And everything is so electronic now, you really can't mess around with that. So I want to start off with business structure and registering your business. So, you're going to choose a name. That's the first part, choosing a name. And the one thing that I always do whenever starting a new business is I brainstorm the names. I've leveraged ChatGPT a lot lately, to be quite honest with you. It's very helpful for just coming up with ideas. But however you want to do it, whether you're sitting around with a group of friends, family, whatever you want to do, come up with a good list of names, things that you like, and then start looking at what's available in your state. So like, for example, in my state, you can go to the State Corporation Commission website, you can do a search, and it'll tell you what the legal entities are in the state that are already registered. Now, let's say that there's a business that is up and operational in Ohio and you live in Florida. You can register a business with the same name in Florida. Now, if that Ohio business has registered itself in Florida as a foreign entity, then you would not be able to use that name. Now, that's going a little more deep into it than you really need to know, but you just need to start searching your local place where you intend to conduct business and find out what businesses are already registered and, with your state corporation commission, or however the registration is handled where you are. The next thing I look at is the socials. So what can you get with your whatever socials you're interested in, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, wherever you intend to do business. It's like, for me, there's a lot of them that I have, and it's just to hold it so that somebody else doesn't impersonate me like some guy on Facebook is doing right now. But like, I have the full at Beekeeping for Newbies, but there's a guy who has some other a board, a discussion group that he's created, and he literally in his About Us. So thank you, by the way, to the listener who pointed that out to us. But yeah, he has it listed in his bio, Beekeeping for Newbies podcast and YouTube channel. So that's pretty awesome. And Facebook has done nothing about it. I've reported it like 4 times and they just ignore it. But anyway, trying to lock down your socials, that's always a good thing. So pick the name, see if it's available from the state corporation side, and then checking your socials. So let's talk about entity types. Okay, so these are probably the most common things or options that you would have available to you. So you could start out as a sole proprietor. This is pretty simple. You don't get a whole lot of liability protection from this, but let's say, for example, my name is Mike Smith and I want to start a handyman business. If I just start doing business as, I don't go and I don't register. And again, some places require you to register if you are a sole proprietor. In other cases, you can just use your social security number and you can conduct business as, what did I say? John Smith, Mike Smith? We'll go with Mike Smith. But you're Mike Smith, sole proprietor, and you're conducting business as your name using your social security number. If you know you are never going to hire anybody else, you don't really mind the commingling of your business and personal assets and resources, that is one way that you can go. Now, I do recommend still at least creating a separate account, even though it's going to still be in the Mike Smith name. I still recommend having a separate account so at least you have some separation, even though it's not legal separation. It's just for good management. But again, by default, if you don't register a separate business name, it becomes your full legal name. Again, all income will be reported under your social security number, but you could still get an EIN, which we're going to talk about in the next section, as a sole proprietor. You can also use what's called a DBA, or a doing business as. So it might be, Mike's Repairs instead of Mike Smith, or Mike's Handyman Service, or whatever you want to call it. Now, you may still, even as a sole proprietor, need to register as a sole proprietor within your state, even if you don't have a DBA, which leads us to the next recommendation, what I would recommend that you do. You have an LLC, or a limited liability company. Now, a lot of people think that, if I have an LLC, I'm 100% protected, man. That separates me from the LLC. I would not don't let that fool you, or that idea fool you that you're going to have protection. Different states have better protection than others, but you still have liability. You still have to make sure that you're conducting yourself in a way that is within standards of best practices. And, it's sort of like a doctor with malpractice. Like, you can make a mistake as a doctor and your insurance covers it, and it's kind of, air quotes, okay. But if you are negligent and grossly negligent or malicious, you're not going to have that same coverage and protection. Now, what I personally recommend, I'm going to give you an example of what I would do with an LLC. I heard a story about a guy. He and his wife owned a home, and they had like 6 or 7 homes they were renting as Airbnb rentals. Now, if that's me, I'm putting an LLC in front of every address. So every one of those homes is going to have an LLC associated with it. I'm going to register it in a place that's very LLC friendly, like Wyoming, for example. If you're registered in Wyoming, there is a phrase they use, and I can't remember what it's called, but it's like it's like business of last resort or something like that, where it essentially means is when you go to that LLC and you're pursuing them legally, it stops at that LLC. So if I own 100 different companies, but you're suing, Mike's Repair Shop, or Mike's Handyman Service, or whatever you want to call yourself, you hit the top of that LLC and that's it. There's no other liability associated with other businesses. So again, where you incorporate, you can't just be like, I think I'll just incorporate there. If you have a brick and mortar business and you're conducting business in, let's say Maryland or Georgia or whatever, you have to register where you're conducting business. That's a big component of this. I just don't want you to think that the LLC by itself is going to provide you with a lot of protection. Now, in the example that I gave with the guy and his wife and I think it was 7 properties, 6 of which were rentals, they had one of their Airbnb customers have like a slip fall kind of thing or whatever. They sued them, and they didn't just stop at the one house. They literally went after everything. When it was all said and done, they ended up losing all 6 of the houses. I don't know the details of the settlement, but all 6 of the houses were disposed of. And then the husband and wife got divorced, and the guy ended up leaving, and the wife kept the house. But that's just an example of what can happen when you don't put any layers of protection in place. Now, one thing I do like with an LLC is that you can use what's called a registered agent. So let's say I live in Virginia and I want to establish a new business. Well, I live here. I can just go to the State Corporation Commission website, file all the paperwork online, print out a PDF of my new business info, and I'm up and running. And then when somebody goes on the State Corporation website and they search for my business, they see my name, my mailing address, my home address, and they see all my personal information. Not a big fan of that. So what I did and what I do is I create an LLC in a place that you have 2 options with this, but the primary way that I like to go, there are a couple of states that still allow an anonymous LLC where that information does not get disclosed. But by using a registered agent, you can register in any state and nobody knows who you are. Now, there was a thing called BOI, And what BOI was it was like an anti-money laundering thing. And it's a beneficiary of interest, I think is what it stands for. But essentially, it was a requirement that came up a couple years ago. Every LLC, every entity had to file BOI to make sure that they knew who the underlying owner and interested parties were of any corporation or LLC or whatever. It's my understanding that that's gone for good. They've finally beat that down in the Supreme Court or wherever else, and we're not going to have to deal with that anymore. But the beauty of this is I have a couple of LLCs right now. Nobody knows they're tied to me. Nobody knows they're associated with me. Yes, the IRS knows because I include things in IRS data, but it's not public knowledge. And any time that you're in a public-facing place, like I generally don't care. Like, most of my stuff's pretty public. You put yourself out there, you're gonna get that. But as far as a business goes, I really like to separate myself as much as I can. Same thing with your home. This is a little bit of a sidebar, not related. But if you can, put your home into a trust. Like, let's say that you are, as an example, just one of many examples, married person, 3 kids. Put you, your spouse, and your 3 kids into a trust for your home. Your home is now, instead of being 123 Main Street, it's Happy-Go-Lucky Trust. And it literally will say on the county records, Happy-Go-Lucky Trust, 123 Main Street. And nobody knows who owns it. So now you're providing a buffer between you and the general public, for one thing. And 2, when somebody passes away, it just stays within the trust. You're not dealing with all the crap I dealt with when my parents died, and it's a big mess. Now, I kind of got off task a little bit here, but LLC, I think, is a great way to go. Now, the next option here is an S-Corp or a C-Corp. Now, quite honestly, they are more complex. There's a little bit more, tax advantages and tax implications to them. It is going to be more expensive to file as an S-Corp or a C-Corp for your if you have an accountant doing your taxes. It's generally probably not going to be necessary for a small beekeeping business. Now, what my accountant told me, and I'll tell you, I got an accountant about a decade ago, and I thought, man, this might be overkill. Do I really need this? Oh my gosh, best decision I ever made in my life. Because I thought like, I'm doing TurboTax. I'm getting money back every year. Hooray. No. Totally different game when you have an accountant. I strongly encourage you, if you are itemizing deductions or you have a business, get an accountant. It makes all the difference in the world. I love my accountant to death. They're amazing people. What they had said to me relatively generically is, once you get to a point where you are profiting more than $30,000 a year, they recommend going from an LLC to an S-Corp because then you can get additional deductions. So one example of this would be like my truck. As an LLC, I deduct my mileage from my truck. I don't have to keep track of receipts for gas. I don't keep track of receipts for repairs or, new tires or, oil changes or whatever. I just deduct the mileage. But if I had an S-Corp, well, Jeff owns the truck. Jeff's going to lease the truck to the company for $1,000 a month. So now Jeff as an individual is making $1,000 a month from this vehicle that he's leasing to the business. The business then does all the repairs or the mileage deductions or whatever else they want to do. And that becomes very, very interesting. But again, consult your tax advisor to find out which one's the best fit for you. Now, I mentioned before about like filing your business entity type, whether it's sole proprietor, LLC, S-Corp, whatever you're doing with, your local state corporation commission, the Secretary of State, whatever the office might be. But also keep in mind, too, that being in an agricultural industry, there are a lot of benefits to registering with the USDA. So check with the state department, state ag department, but also check with USDA as well. For example, my farm is registered with USDA. I don't really get a lot of benefits from it because I don't do all the documentation I need to do with them, which has kind of come back to bite me in the butt. I've had some bee losses. And I could still go down there and file under ELAP, the Emergency Assistance for Livestock and Pollinators. And I think they added fish onto that, livestock, pollinators, and fish. I know I could still file with ELAP, but then if you don't have your stuff together, like I don't have my stuff completely together, I think it just opens the door up for more inspection that I'm not really into. But yeah, so just make sure that you're keeping that in mind as well. Like in Virginia, I have an LLC, I have a couple of LLCs, but I have an LLC in Virginia. And I'm not conducting business where I live. In fact, in the city of Virginia Beach, you can't have a home-based business. I went through this years ago with a different business. It was a big mess. So let's say that I'm an accountant and I work from home. Nothing wrong with that. I can work from home all day long as an accountant. But when people start coming to my house to bring me all their paperwork and I review everything with them, and then they're actually visiting my home, that's where it becomes an issue. But let's say that I'm remotely doing taxes for people in other states or things like that. I don't have to have a local business license. But if you're conducting business locally, then you need a business license. So again, laws and rules and everything are different in different places. So make sure that if you are conducting business locally, that you have registered locally and you have a local business license and whatever else needs to be done with that. Now, the next thing you're going to want to get is a federal EIN. This is an employer identification number. Even if you don't have any employees or you have no intention of getting employees, it's still good to go ahead and have your EIN in place. That way you're not putting your social security number on all your documents. And I always like to set up a business or establish a new business with the mindset of acquisition. So my mindset is always, if somebody wants to buy this from me, they come to me and they go, Jeff, Beekeeping for Newbies is the most amazing thing in the world. I want to buy it from you. I want to be like, cool, here's everything. And I can hand it to them and it's not directly linked to me, or at least I've minimized all the links to me personally and from a tax standpoint. So having that EIN, it's just a good general practice, and it really links it's almost like a social security number for your business, which is great. And it is a requirement if you ever want to have employees. So again, get it up front. When you go to establish a bank account, the bank is going to be saying, okay, can you give me all your LLC formation docs, your articles of incorporation, and your EIN? And you go, well, I don't have an EIN. It's like, it's not as cool. You just go to the irs.gov website. I think it takes about, like 5 minutes to fill the form out. And then you can just print your EIN online right there. It's a piece of cake, super easy to do. We've already talked about the local, city licenses that may be in play. And of course, obviously, this is a little bit off of the business licensing, but definitely keeping in mind about zoning laws and things like that, right? It might be legal for you to sell where you are, but not legal for you to actually do the agricultural aspect of beekeeping. So just kind of knowing some of those things are going to be helpful. Now, one thing that is critically important, I would say that the majority of people really, really work hard to get what they want in life. Yes, there are a few people that are, right place, right time, living off somebody else's money, living off of a inheritance or a trust fund or, whatever. But for the most part, I think a lot of people really grind it out and they work hard for what they have in life. I mentioned earlier about the idea of a trust. I think trusts are great ways to protect assets. But outside of that, keeping things, as simple as possible, it's not a bad idea to consider having some kind of a general liability insurance. You want to, think about this. So think about a situation where you're just trying to be a nice guy or gal. Someone's like, oh my God, I love honeybees. I want to come by your house and see your bees. And you're like, yeah, man, come on over. And they come over and they didn't tell you that they were allergic to bees. They get stung and they die in your front yard from anaphylaxis. And then their spouse is suing you. And you're like, he didn't tell me he was allergic to bees. Doesn't matter. They're going to sue you. They're going to come after you. And they're not going to stop. It's not going to be like, oh, well, there's a house there. Let's just go after whatever the insurance is on the homeowner's insurance. They're going to be going after the house. Okay, well, how much is it, the insurance on the house? They got $500,000 in liability or whatever. And they got any rental properties? That's a nice truck. And they're going to go after everything. They will sue anybody and everybody involved. It's like, if you have a small business and you had 10 people working there, and one employee made a mistake, they're going to go after the employee. They're going to go after the supervisor on shift that day. They're going to go after the manager who was there, the owner, the board members, literally everybody and their brother. I just set up a nonprofit, and as part of setting up the nonprofit, I have board member insurance. Just in case we make a mistake somewhere, at least we've got insurance to protect our board members. But you got to do the same kind of thing. But I really, really recommend too, call your homeowner's insurance company and just say, hey, look, I'm keeping 5 hives at my house. I've got a little sign up that says caution honeybees. I have a little area that's fenced off that says do not enter. I've got bees. Is this okay? I'm like, am I covered? What more do I need to do to make you all happy and keeping my coverage in place and all of that? Find out from them. That would be my first level, your first level of defense is your home insurance company. But again, general liability is going to be able to cover you from everything else. It could be a bee sting. It could be a slip fall kind of thing where someone's walking through. If you're walking around my apiary, you got to sign a waiver because there's just too many things you could trip on. I've got water moccasins, copperheads. Now I say that, Like I've seen a couple of snakes, 2 or 3 snakes I've seen in the, 7 years I've owned that property or whatever it is. I know they're there. I've walked around barefoot all over that property. I know they're there, but they're not messing with me. But if they mess with somebody else, who are they going to sue? They're going to sue me, and they're coming after everything. Like I said, they're coming after your home, second home, rental home, whatever, it doesn't matter. Also thinking about it from a food standpoint, you're selling honey. Your honey might be completely fine. They mixed it in with some salmon or something like that, fed it to somebody who's allergic to fish or whatever, and now they're coming after you for the honey, right? I mean, like, you got to think of the craziest things that people can come up with and think that it could happen. So that kind of extends even further. So we talked about from the bees themselves and interacting with the bees. We talked about kind of honey. But what about if you make mead and then somebody drank too much of your mead and they're like, I didn't know mead had alcohol in it. Then they're suing you because they got a DUI because they thought that mead was just a flavorful bee drink. Or candles. Well, I had these candles lit and I couldn't breathe, and I had to go to the ER because I was having an asthma attack from these candles. Or cosmetics, you're putting some kind of lip balm that's really great and you put it on, it's like, oh, isn't that wonderful? And the person has some kind of weird lip thing that they already had, but they're going to blame it on you. I'm telling you, man, people will do some crazy stuff. So look at it from a food, consumption, general liability, product liability, across the board. Now, if you want to get big time, like real big time, and you're really starting to grow and you've invested tens of thousands of dollars into extraction equipment and decapping equipment and bottling and massive, 55-gallon drums, to forklifts and pallets and things you're moving around, then you may want to start looking into, insurance for the equipment and all that. So lots of things to kind of keep in mind there, but at a minimum, have a discussion. And I did a little bit of research, and I was finding some policies as low as, a couple $100 a year, $250, $300 a year, and some of them were much more. But you probably still want to be targeting like that $500,000 to $1 million in liability. And if you can do it too, here's another thing. This is kind of I hate that I do this. I apologize that I kind of go all over the place, but that's just the chaotic brain that I have. Look at umbrella policies too. So like if you have a auto insurance and then you have your home insurance and it's the same company, sometimes you can also then add an umbrella policy on top of that, which gives you some additional liability. Insurance, I'm a big fan. I mean, you just can't have enough of it. Okay, and I did cover I want to kind of go into the banking and financial separation. So we did talk about, using an EIN to get a bank account. But it's really important that you're separating these things, because as you want to start deducting and taking business deductions, you can't have all of your personal stuff mixed in with it. Like if I order some things on Amazon. So I needed to do a repair on a piece of equipment at the property that was associated with my operation. So I bought, I don't know what it was. It was like a couple of boxes of some sticks for stick welding. And I had just a couple odds and ends. And that was all I had in my order. And then when I bought some personal items, I bought them in a separate order. Now that they're from the account doesn't matter, but I did use a credit card that is a business credit card for one. So having business credit cards, they're really easy to get. Like I thought, a new business, I'm not going to be able to get a credit card. No, you still have to use like your personal information to get it. But once you establish business credit, then that certainly helps towards you being able to, again, down the road, separate yourself from it. But at least you have a separate account for your credit transactions. And then you just print those statements at the end of the year, or you can print them off every month and be much more organized about it than I am. I do everything around the first week of January or so as my accountant's getting me, telling me I need to bring everything to them. But that way you have full statements that show everything. You can, print out the individual receipts and keep track of all that stuff. But keeping it all separate is pretty critical. Now, one thing that people will often ask about is like, hey, I've got a business that's in place. I've got my EIN. I've got everything where it needs to be. I got an accountant. This is what they're telling me to do. What about payment stuff? So I can tell you right now that I've used a lot of them over the years. And one of my favorites is Stripe, like STRIPE, Stripe. What I really like about Stripe is like I can go to the Beekeeping for Newbies homepage and right down there near the bottom, I think where it says buy me a coffee. I can say, you know what, I'm not going to use buy me a coffee anymore, which I probably shouldn't because they take too much in fees. But I can go down there, get rid of the buy me a coffee link and say, hey, please feel free to donate to the podcast, and have a little, just like a little icon there, or, a little button or whatever. And that takes you straight to Stripe and they can process a donation. Or, if you want to integrate into regular products through Shopify or other type of web platforms, Stripe is really, really integrated across a lot of different areas, of different providers, and I'm really happy with them. I have used Square before. Their fees were a little bit higher, but they were easy to work with. A lot of times, if you already have a banking relationship and your business banking is going to be, with your local bank, you might be able to just say to them like, hey, what does it take for me to get a card reader? So that you can, if you have a card reader, you want to do some in-person, face-to-face sales. I've done that with Square before as well. And you have the chip reader. I think I had to spend $50 to get the chip reader. But the cool thing with Square, I will say, is I had an iPad and I was able to create a whole bunch of invoices very easily and get this completely set up for a guy who was in the tree business. And I literally handed it to him and he could just go out and click a few buttons. It would send a text to the person. It would then send them the terms of service, the contract, all the information. They could pay by credit card, right there. And everything was automatically done through the phone. It was really, really easy. Do some research on that. If you're looking around and you're having trouble finding something, you have some questions, hit me up in the Discord room, drop me an email, and I'm happy to talk about that. But one option you do have too still is PayPal or PayPal Business. I dropped PayPal years ago because we had conflicting views on business stuff, terms of service, I guess it came down to. My position is that if you want to engage in constitutionally protected activities and it's completely legal to do so, that PayPal has no place to tell me that I can or can't do something. I was running a business and they specifically said, no, not for your business. So I was like, okay. So I canceled my PayPal stuff and have never gone back to them. And I strongly encourage you to do the same, but you got to make the decision that's right for you. And like I said, Stripe has been very good so far. No complaints, lots of good integration points. You can have multiple accounts. You can give permissions to certain people to do different things. It's very, very user friendly. Now, as I've mentioned before about getting an accountant and how valuable that is, what I do is my accountant has like a format. This is the order they want everything in. I have one big folder. I give it to them in like 6 subfolders. One of those folders is nothing but receipts. And I'll write down at the top of the receipt, bought some hand tools for doing some welding on this trailer or whatever. Or I might say something like, this is an order for, 300 new hive bodies for beekeeping or whatever. Just giving them enough notes so they know how to categorize it. Again, talk to your accountant and figure out what's best for them. Now, the other thing to remember is taxes. Taxes are a big deal as far as how to collect them and all of that. There are some positions that you might be in where it might be easier to just say, yes, this jar of honey is $8, $12, $20, $50, whatever you want to do. Just charge a flat fee and then deal with the taxes. Like you take out the taxes later. That way, if you're doing like a roadside stand, I know a guy, we've had him on the podcast, actually, Benny out there in Utah, roadside stand. He just takes, he's a $15, $20. Now on the back end, he's responsible for saying, okay, today I made, $200. So based on our tax rate, I need to, put aside, make a note, whatever he does. But instead of itemizing every single one, he just handles it however he handles it. So if you want to do a spreadsheet of transactions or, whatever works for you. But again, if you're using some of these things like Square and Stripe and all of that, they're going to keep track of all of that. In fact, on the Stripe side, you can have them take all the billing information and it would tax them based on their area. Now, where it gets kind of funky with some of the online taxation is that a lot of places now, I think, require you to pay taxes to the state of the person, like where they live. That gets a little weird. Some places are only required to collect taxes if it's the transaction's taking place in the same state. So if I sold something to somebody in Charlottesville, Virginia, I got to collect taxes. You're buying from me in Salt Lake City, I don't. That's all kind of weird things. Again, consult your local tax advisor for that one. But I would say, in general, as a rule of thumb, if you're selling face-to-face stuff, you're going to have to collect taxes in one capacity or another, whether you charge it to your customers or whether you tell them it's a flat fee and you're paying it on the back end. That's how, it's up to you. Now, another thing to remember too, and this is, it's part of your business, not necessarily around setting up a business, but if you are selling honey, make sure you're complying with the honey labeling. Same thing as cosmetics or anything that you might be doing. If there are labeling requirements, so again, like on the honey side of things, you may have to say, for example, it must indicate that not to be given to children under the age of 1 because of the possibility of botulism. Or, you may have to say something like wildflower honey. Like you may not be able to say that this is a specific type of honey, or you can't say organic unless you had complete control of everything within 10 square miles or what, like there's all kinds of different things you got to comply with. So check your state on that one. Find out what types of things you need to have on your labels. A lot of places may need you to advertise the actual address where that was processed. Others you can do city and state. Some of them you don't have to do any of that. So again, making sure you're compliant with USDA, FDA, and all that good stuff. And then of course there's, again, state-specific beekeeping rules and regulations around, how you register your apiary, moving bees in and out, being available for inspection, permits, and all that kind of stuff. So now we've kind of gone through a lot of the business side of things and setting the business up and, some of the legal aspects of it. I'm just going to go through just a couple of examples of areas where you can make some money with honeybees. So of course you can sell bees, right? So selling nucleus colonies, I'm going to just say 5-frame nukes, what would be the standard that we're working off of here. So a nuke is a nucleus colony or like a smaller miniature colony. 5-frame nukes are highly in demand. I mean, this is especially after what's happened, the past end of year 2024, beginning of 2025, lots of losses, lots of, commercial providers are having trouble getting them out. The entity that I was working with, they were going to be 3 weeks delayed this year on their package bees. So if you're selling 5-frame nukes, I think that's a great opportunity to make some money there. And if you were going to do that, I recommend buying like those cardboard collapsible boxes that you can just let the person take them home in. Keeps your costs down, and it helps helps them have something that they can take home and reuse. Package bees, a little bit more effort involved in it, but typically, you have people that specialize in that. They do an assembly line and they come through and they just crank them out. Just every person has a roll and just boom, 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 boom down the line very efficiently. If I were going to be doing it, I would only be doing nukes. I would not be selling package bees. Not that there's anything wrong with it at all. It's just, I'm not the guy for that. That's just too much logistical stuff. Shipping them, dealing with that, dealing with insurance claim, dealing with USPS, right? U.S. Postal Service, that by itself, not happening. Queen rearing is a great way to make money in bee business. If you are good at what you do and you learn a few basic things required to make really good, healthy queens, it's a great way to make money. And you can kind of set your price. I mean, you don't want to be silly about it, and you want to be reasonable and be fair with people and keep people interested in the hobby, but the demand is there. So if you're making queens and you're good at it and you make good, healthy queens, you can definitely make some good money there. Now, we did talk about honey products and selling honey, and you can do, infused or creamed honey and mead, beeswax products, lip balms. There's one name that's really funny. I'm not going to mention it online because I think we have some patent pending stuff in the Discord room, but there are some jokes we have online about that. Pollen. People use pollen, added as a food additive, propolis, royal jelly. There's people out there wanting to buy royal jellies. You can try and, harvest your own royal jelly. Now, on a services side of things, you've got pollination services, right? You can take your bees to farms and orchards and different places, charge them a fee to provide those pollination services. So that's great. You can do what I've talked about, which is, the idea of having a service where you deliver bees, maintain bees for people, and they can just enjoy the bees being there, but they don't have to do anything with it. It's kind of an interesting service, something that I was really looking at seriously at doing at one point in time. But again, you can't do everything. And I feel like, as I'm getting older, man, my body's just not loving all the lifting of everything. I feel like that one might be on hold for a little while, but it's still a cool thing to do. Even if you were small time, maybe you only had, 10 or 20 hives, you get a few customers set up, they're on a monthly subscription, and you just go around, teach a little bit and help them maintain different levels of plans for different levels of service. That's pretty cool. And then there's always, like on the educational side, if you think, Jeff, your podcast sucks, man, you're not doing a good enough job, I can do better. Happy to help support you. I wish you the best of luck. Do your own podcast, right? I mean, I tell you guys all the time, don't use one source of information. Listen to me, listen to what I have to say, take it with a grain of salt and listen to somebody else. And then you'll find over time, that guy Cayman Reynolds is full of crap. Jeff is so much better. No, I'm kidding. I love Cayman. I'm just joking. Don't go telling Cayman that I'm talking smack about him. Cayman's a great guy. I actually don't know him personally, but he's a pretty cool dude, very knowledgeable. But really, go look at other people and listen to what they have to say and find a plan that works for you. And you guys know I've said this one a million times. Beekeep in the way that is right for you. Find the techniques that are right for you. I'm going to show you a lot of tips. I got a lot of stuff rolling out in this apprentice program that are little tips and tricks and things that I've done over the years. And you can look at it and be like, wow, that was pretty cool. I'm going to use that. And then see another one and say, that's ridiculous. I don't like that. Here's how I do it. Great. Right? Find cool things that you like and then share them with everybody else so we can all enjoy it. It's part of the business, being able to share. It's a really great supportive community. I'm so thankful and blessed to be a part of it, because I get to meet so many great people all the time in the Discord room and emails of people. I got friends. I literally have people that I consider friends in Canada and Australia, the UK, got a lot of good Texas folks. We even got some northern folk in here, some folks from New York and Pennsylvania, Michigan, Montana, Minnesota. Like, there's just so many great people, and, being a part of the community and being able to share with each other and share that information, but gather information from a lot of different sources. If you brought me something and you say, hey, what do you think of this? Because I get a lot of that. And I may say, I disagree with that approach. I don't think that works for me. I don't think that person's a bad beekeeper. I don't think that they are deliberately giving you bad information. I don't think that they're trying to hurt you. I don't think they're trying to, screw you over or anything like that. I just think that there are different ways of doing things. So find the way that is best for you as you kind of go through your journey. And don't hesitate to ask questions, right? We got the Discord room. Jump in there. We got links to that off of the Beekeeping for Newbies homepage. So jump in the Discord room and feel free to ask questions over there. If you love the content or like it at least a little bit and think it's useful for you and you're finding some value, feel free to hit that buy me a coffee there and just say hi. And I think we've probably just about covered everything that we needed to cover today. So a couple of just wrapping up things, right? Start small with your business, right? Start small. Don't try to boil the ocean. Don't try to do everything at once. You can scale into a lot of these things. Just try to position yourself for the future by, like I said, at least start with an LLC that's going to provide you some basic level of protection. They're really simple to start. If you mess up, it's really easy to just go start another one. So that it's really easy to work with. Follow the rules. I'm telling you, man, I have played the game with the IRS before, and they won the first rounds. But ever since I had an accountant, man, it has been so much better. I used to get on the phone with the IRS. I used to deal with them and be on hold for 30, 45 minutes. They'd tell me something. I'd hang up, call back, be on hold 30, 45 minutes, and somebody would literally tell me something completely different. Once I got an accountant, all those troubles went away. I get a legal notice in the mail. Honest to God, I open it up, I look at it, and I go, I tear it up and I throw it away. And then about a week later, my accountant calls, goes, hey, by the way, I'm not sure if you saw the notice or not, but yeah, they were wrong. We provided the information they were asking for. It's taken care of. And I'm like, awesome, thank you. That's where you want to be. Follow the rules, follow the laws, get an accountant. You'll be happy you did. I want you to remember, too, that the beekeeping, it can be profitable. It's going to take you some time to build a sustainable business that is really, truly self-sustaining. But you can create that true sustainable apiary. And if you want to watch a really good video, check out Michael Palmer's Sustainable Apiary video. I think it's one of the National Honey Show things, but it's top choice. If you search Michael Palmer Sustainable Apiary, just watch that video. It's like an hour-long video. But when you get to the point where your nukes are providing support to your production colonies, which are providing resources to build cell builders, which are providing resources to make nukes, and you get this like triad of things, it's really, really an awesome place to be when you don't have to buy nukes anymore. You don't have to buy packaged bees anymore. You're taking a couple hundred bees, you're splitting them, into nukes every spring. Oh, you're a little short this year, make a cell builder and crank out 20 or 30 queens, right? You have so much more that you can do, and you can do it. You just got to take time, get those building blocks, build the strong foundation now. And, that's the other piece too. Don't feel like you got to do everything, right? When I said like start small and scale as you grow, what I mean is don't feel like, okay, here's how we're going to do honey sales, and here's how we're going to do our bee sales, and here's how we're going to make our mead. Don't worry about that. Just focus. Step one, learn to overwinter bees and to care for bees and practice good animal husbandry. Step one. Step two, how do I split and maintain the splits and provide them with the resources they need to make it through? Build it up. You'll find something that you like. Like I know people who do a lot of like wax melting. They take all the wax and they melt everything down. They make really cool candles and wedges and neat things that look like a big block of cheese, Find what you are enjoying, what you're passionate about, and what you like about it, and pursue that. You can always add more things later. And that's what makes it even better. As you start bringing new things in, you have people coming to you and saying, hey, I love your honey, but man, I'd really like some lip balm or some other things. You can always grow later, but don't try to do everything from day one. All right, folks. Well, I hope that covered everything. If I missed anything, feel free to drop me an email, jeff@beekeepingfornewbies.com. It's NEWBEES.com. Hit us over there on the Discord room. And, we'll look forward to catching up with you on whatever you might have going on in your bee yard. Take care. Be kind to one another. Remember that I love you. There's nothing you can do about it. We'll talk to you soon.